Today I'm going to be sharing with you a situation I've dealt with, and it is quite difficult because I am so private. But once again, God is requiring complete transparency of my situation to help others in theirs. Now I'm going to share from the beginning to the end, so I want you to hang in there with me because I believe there is a breakthrough, there is a deliverance just waiting on several of you from what I've received from the Holy Spirit as I went through this very, very difficult situation. So stay tuned.
You are Jesus, you're my strong tower, Jesus, my strength this hour, Jesus, you're my deliverer, yes you are, Jesus.
So once when I was about 8 or 9 years old, my mom and dad were having issues and they separated, and we ended up going to a co-worker's house for a couple of days. And of course my mom still had to go to work. So one morning when she left to go to work, I was still asleep. So finally when I woke up, I remember like it was yesterday. I woke up and there was this guy that was sitting in this chair that was right outside of this guest bedroom, and he was just sitting there facing me in the bedroom. So when I woke up and I looked at him, and it was very, very uncomfortable because it was something about him. You know, when you're younger, when you're a child, it's certain things you kind of pick up on certain adults, or it seems like we're sensitive to certain types of spirits. So it was him and it was another guy, but the other guy was, he was in there, but this particular guy was facing the room that I was in. So he proceeded to say, "Would you like for me to come in there and make you feel good?" And of course, as a child, 8 years old, I was very, very, very uncomfortable with this. So, and I was of course scared. And so what I did was I got up out of the bed and I went and closed the door. And at that time I went and got back in the bed, but I was scared that he was going to come into the room, but he never did. So once I got dressed and I went out into this, I guess you would call it the living room or the family room, he wasn't there. Okay, so let's fast forward. There was another particular time where we ended up having to go back to this co-worker's house because of the issues between my mom and dad. And once again, this particular time we were at her co-worker's house and we were sleeping on a let out couch. Well, a sofa, a sleeper sofa. So she left to go to work, and once again I was there. Of course, this had to have been the summertime because I didn't have school at that time, and it was still around the same time, so I was still about 8 years old. Well, I specifically, guys, remember this guy woke me up. It was the exact same guy that I had that said what he said in a previous experience. He woke me up violating me with his hands, and I'll just leave it right there. And I remember when I woke up and he was like over me, and I just started screaming in the house. Now let me say this, in this particular house, this particular co-worker of hers had several kids that were grown in the house, and they were like in their bedrooms. I remember waking up screaming. When I started screaming, I was screaming to the top of my lungs. And I remember he just took off running. He ran out of the house. And I sat in the bed and I screamed and screamed, and no one came to check on me. I specifically remember no one came. And so I went on ahead and got dressed. And I remember going to the window. And I sat in the window. She had a chair in this window. And I sat in the window and I remember staring out of the window. And I can remember the feelings like it was yesterday. I just remember no one came to help me. I was crying, but at this point I wasn't screaming. I was still just crying. I remember just staring out of the window. Like I just wish, you know, none of her kids woke up. The adults, they were older. Nobody woke up with me screaming like I was. So I remember going to, like I said, I was sitting in the window, and I remember it like it was yesterday. This guy, the same guy, I can see his face, guys. This same guy who was a son, he was a relative of this coworker. He drove, I guess when I was screaming, he ran out of the house, he jumped in his car, and he left. Well, he came back by to pass the house, and I will never forget, he looked at the house as he drove by, and he was smiling. He had this look on his face that right now I just can't describe it, but he was smiling. I remember just watching him drive by, and when you're young, when you're a child, it's certain things that occur, and you can't quite understand it, why did this transpire? What is happening here? Okay, so fast forward as I grew up and became older. Well, I never said anything about this situation to anyone. I just remember saying that to my mom, if we're going back home, do we have to stay here any longer? Can we leave? But I never told her what actually happened. So as I became older, I had those issues because I kept trying to suppress what happened, because that violation, it was dreadful for me. Because I felt at the time, I was like, I was violated, And so as I got older, there were issues that I've had as I've gotten older, and it stemmed from those issues that I've had, that particular event that I had from childhood. Well, I specifically remember once I was called for jury duty. And when I was called for jury duty, it was amazing that once I found out what it was, I'm thinking, somebody's playing a joke on me. The case was considered the worst case in the history of Georgia as it pertained to sexual molestation with children. I'm thinking at this point, God, you have a terrible sense of humor. How am I'm not getting ready to sit on this case is what I'm thinking, because at this point, guys, the issue that I had with this violation, it started surfacing because I'm having to deal with it, looking at the issue with someone else, and it was an issue that I had, and I had been trying to suppress it, over the years, and I knew I was having some issues, but as long as I said it, I just keep it down there and I don't deal with it, just keep it down there, I'll be fine. So I went through this particular meeting, and the jury members were narrowed down to just a few people, and I specifically remember that I can't believe I'm still here. What in the world? So I remember being called to the room where the both attorneys and the guy that was being accused of it was sitting in the room. The judge was there, and so I remember I was sitting at this table and I was facing the prosecuting attorney, and the judge was here, she was here, I was here, so I was facing her, but the guy who was being accused of it, we were at this huge oval table. The guy that was being accused of it, he was sitting at an angle behind me with his attorney. So I'm facing them, and they asked me if I've dealt with a sexual situation where I was molested or anything like this when I was younger. And I'm thinking at this point, oh, I'm done now. When I tell them yes, I know they're not going to want me on this case. So I said, yes, I was very, very uncomfortable with it. When I'm uncomfortable, I shift a lot in my seat because I'm uncomfortable with whatever subject it is, or I'm having to deal with something that I don't want to deal with. So I specifically remember shifting, and I answered the question yes. So they proceeded to ask me other questions about what happened, and I'm thinking, that's, a little private at this point. That's not something I want to talk about. And I was having to fight back tears because you're asking me this. I never forget it. So when they asked me this last question, guys, my mouth, I was getting ready, and to myself saying, I'm getting ready to say this. and I know I'm going to be off the case. So they asked me if I would be able to serve as a jury member and not be biased towards the person, since I had gone through the situation that I went through. Guys, in my mind, I was saying, no, I won't be able to do this. But my mouth said, yes, I will be able to sit on this case and not be biased. And what in the world? So I'm thinking, what in the world? God, really? So it just came out. I'm like, what in the world? That's not what I was trying to say. So I was, whatever. So anyway, so it ended up that I was chosen, but I was chosen as an alternate jury member. So that meant that I had to hear the case, but I didn't have to be the judge on the case. I didn't have to go back and deliberate with the other jury members. I had to sit and listen to what transpired, but that was it. So the case started, and guys, I had to sit there and I had to listen to what was happening. It was so very, very difficult. But one thing I can say is that after I finished this particular case, God let me know that I had to sit there because he wanted me to know that he really was there. Because one of my questions to him when I started getting to know him was, why did you allow this to happen? Why didn't you save me? Why did you let this guy do what he did to me? I couldn't understand when I got to know who he was. And, I know this is a question that a lot of people have. Why does God allow bad things to happen to people? Especially kids. And that was a question I struggled with for a while when I was getting to know him. Well, this is so difficult. Well, when I finished that case, he said, Vivian, I want you to know that I really was with you. And he helped me to understand that through the case, because what those girls had to go through in that case, it was just unheard of. So after that, guys, I was no longer questioning God about it. I felt like, okay, I understood about it enough, and I understood that God really was with me, and I stopped having the issues that came from that event. So I felt that, I was okay, because I could even think about it at times, and, it really wasn't that big of a deal, for me. And until he brought it back to me at this point. So after he helped me to truly understand my purpose today and the message for today, guys, I have been completely set free of those chains that were binding me in this particular situation. Completely set free. I thought I was really before, but now, guys, I can actually see myself as a little girl staring out of that window crying, and I can see my molester's face driving by in his car smiling, and right now I can smile back. So he has given me a different perspective to share with you today. So I have my notes so that I don't mess up anything or forget to share anything with you that the Holy Spirit has given me. So the Holy Spirit has helped me to understand that he may have had me and violated my body, this flesh, but he can never have my spirit, because it belongs to God. Let me explain. You see, my mind is attached to my body. So for a period of time, because of the feeding of my flesh, my lack of understanding, and a devastation I felt, my mind held on to this violation of my body because I was unable to separate the two. And the more my flesh was being fed, check this out, the more my flesh was being fed over the years, the more out of control or the more issues I had that was stemming from that event. So now, since over the years I've been feeding my spirit, I have been able to grow in the spirit. So the more I've been feeding my spirit, guys, the more my mind is being led by my spirit, and I'm able to separate the violation of my body from my mind. And I'm able to let go. So once the Holy Spirit brought this back up to me, he helped me to understand that this flesh of ours, this body, is only on earth for a certain period of time. And that violation that occurred to this flesh, it was a physical act that cannot destroy the Spirit of God that's in me. Ecclesiastes 12:7 says, and the dust returns to the earth as it was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. So what I would say to my molester is that you wanted my body so much until you would violate me as a child. But you know what? It's all good, because you may have had this body that will be returning to the earth. It will dissolve, so it don't even matter to me anymore. But what you cannot have is my spirit, because it will live forever with my Jesus. So we must understand that we have to walk with the Spirit, so that our mind is being controlled by the Spirit, so we can understand that what was done and what is done to this flesh, guys, it don't even matter, because once this life is over, when this time is over, all of this is going to return to the earth. The dust that we were created out of will return to the earth. And the spirit that God put in us will live eternally with our Jesus. You got to get that. That's why at this moment, I can let it go, and I can say that I'm good at this moment, because I know what's waiting on me in eternity. So what was done to this flesh, this violation, honey, it don't even matter to me anymore, because the only thing that matters is that I get to spend an eternity with my Jesus. Ephesians 6:12 lets us know that we must understand that we fight not, guys, that we fight not against the flesh, but against the spiritual forces of evil. So if you've been dealing with any type of violation of anything that you can't seem to let go, you must understand that we're dealing with evil spirits that attack us at our weakest, our flesh. So guys, if we are living in the flesh, if we are feeding the flesh, when I say feeding the flesh, I'm talking about alcohol and other things that we do to try to suppress what we don't want to deal with. If we're doing this and we're being attacked by these evil spirits, they are banking on us not understanding this whole concept of us dealing with and fighting these spirits with our spirit and not with our flesh, guys. This is why we fail so often, because we try to fight what's in the spirit with our flesh. We will fail every time. We can't attack the situation that way. So when they attack us in our flesh, we are defenseless against them when we are not led by the Holy Spirit. We try to deal with these issues in our flesh, led by the flesh and not by the Spirit. This is why we fail. Guys, if you are dealing with issues that you are holding on to, let it go. It's not worth it. This flesh is going to dissolve. It's going to go back to the earth. I want you to just take a moment and think about your time with Jesus when this life is over. Think about your time with Jesus when this life is over, and let it go. Get yourself right by feeding your spirit and allowing your spirit to guide your thoughts and your mind, so that you can separate that violation with this body, because this body is not going to last. This is not going to matter. What they did to us is not going to matter. It is not going to matter. Let it go and live your life to the fullest, the way God intended on you to do so. Let these spirits know that they will not continue to keep you in bondage. and be blessed.
Jesus, oh, my strength.